Professor Lugovskyy, thank you so much for taking the time to come speak with us at the Kyiv Post today. My name is Jason Smart. Perhaps you could start by telling us a few words about yourself.
Hi, Jason. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to give an interview for Kyiv Post. My name is Volodymyr Lugovskyy. So I grew up in Ukraine after studying in Kyiv. I then went to United States, got my PhD here. So currently I work as an associate professor of economics at Indiana University and also the director of graduate studies. And my research specialization is in international trade. And the second area, I guess, would be also financial bubbles in experimental markets.
So with all that background and knowing the region, having grown up in Ukraine, how do you see the situation today for Ukraine itself economically, but also for Russia? How do you see what's going on in Russia? It seems that the ruble's lost a lot of value. It's devalued recently, and it's struggling. What's going on exactly? How would you explain that in layman's terms?
Yeah, so if you're talking about Russia, right? So A, they have huge reserves, and B, up until recently, the sanctions were kind of weak, right? So they still could export their energy to, including even like European countries, right? So now sanctions since beginning of December became stricter, and plus they are, getting less and less in their reserves, presumably. And so that, I think, put stronger pressure on Russian rubles than we observed before. And so we've seen that, the exchange rate has changed. And obviously for Russia, exchange rate has a symbolic value. So I have no doubt that their financial system was trying to prevent ruble from depreciating. And so despite that, we have significant 13% drop. So to me, that's an indicator that, maybe we started to see this change and this shift. And as we know, if you're this, very tip of financial bubble, so initially it starts kind of dropping at smaller rate and potentially then can accelerate even faster, right? So I cannot predict exactly when this bad collapse may happen. But if you think about Russian banking system, so the Central Bank of Russia kind of officially forbade Russian banks to publish their financial, activity results. And so it's a bit of kind of, let's say, we don't know what's going on, right? So we know that even just before the war, several banks which were suspect to be under sanctions. So key of them is Bank Russia, which kind of people know that's Putin's bank. So within a month, their net assets dropped by 8%. And then indeed, that was one of the more sanctioned banks. So I'm sure the Central Bank of Russia is kind of trying to support all of these banks, but their resources might be limited to that. So plus, we also know that large fraction of Russian middle class has either left the country or at least transferred their savings abroad. And one of the indicators today was kind of report also that the currencies of all these countries around Russia have actually appreciated quite a bit in Georgia and Armenia and Tajikistan. And so people attributed to, Russians transferring their currency into those local currencies. Plus, of course, those who with most means and resources also transfer their funds probably to hard currencies like euro and US dollar.
And so what is the prospect? What are we going to see then? I mean, what do you think is Russia going to look like in the near term and the long term? Do you think that there is a chance that the ruble has, let's say, hyperinflation, or do you think there's runs on the bank? What does this look like?
It seems that more and more Russia is using these instruments of, back of Soviet type of managing its currency. So in other words, it's no longer currency which has value compared to international currencies, but it's just currency for internal usage, right? And so buying dollars or buying euros with that currency becomes increasingly more difficult and probably will be even more so in the future. So it will be kind of reserved to very few, a very small number of agents in Russia in the future to be able to buy dollars or euros, right? And so I guess also from international trade perspective, China, maybe India and Turkey will be playing a more and more important role in trade with Russia. And so to some extent, I guess that saves Russia. But on the other hand, obviously, given that you have less and less buyers of Russian energy, and you have less and less of sellers to Russia of all other goods, these countries obviously will be having much better bargaining power. And so the ratio of prices will also change. And so the trade will be much less favorable for Russia over time, right? And so that's potential also risk for Russia.
So if things play out as they do today, what would you say? I can't ask you probability statistics, but what do you think? How likely, highly likely, highly unlikely, maybe, is it that Russia at some point in the next year, year and a half, simply reaches the breaking point where it's not able to sustain its artificial structure it's created for its economy?
What kind of plays for Russia is that so their economy or their society, right, so does not have this way of actually expressing their opinions openly, so it's all like suppressed. And so potentially they can claim this official exchange rate to be whatever it is. It just will have no bearing, no relationship with the actual exchange rate, right? And so there is this two types of processes. One is that what is officially reported, and that kind of controlled by the government, and that can be anything. The other one is that true market exchange rate, and so we know that in economies under stress, there is potentially these big deviations between those two, and so I think that is likely to collapse relatively soon, because already now, like less than 3 weeks after latest round of European sanctions was introduced, we already see this shift in exchange rate. So I think it will be accelerating even more. So I think it's just a matter of months.
Good news to hear. Well, listen, Professor, I appreciate your time. Thank you for coming today. And Slava Ukraini.
Heroям slava. Thank you.